Hello, my name is Euro and welcome to another Baldur's Gate 3 build video. In today's video I'll be showing you my Githyanki Raider build, which is inspired by the very annoying Githyanki Raider NPCs you will have to fight throughout the entire game. The build itself will be a pure Vital Battlemaster build, so there will be no multiclassing, with focus on the archery. So our main way of dealing damage will be actually our ranged weapons, namely the crossbow we'll be using. The build will have quite high damage with good mobility because of our boots, and later on good current control because we will impose disadvantage onto our enemies with one of our gloves when we use our Battlemaster maneuvers. So for the character creation, as for your race, of course we're going with the Githyanki. The Githyanki gain the Astro Knowledge class action, which gives them proficiency in all skills of a chosen ability, meaning let's say you use this in dialogue for a charisma based skill, you will have proficiency in all of the charisma based skills, which is very handy to have. For our cantrip, a racial cantrip, we gain the Githyanki Psionics Mage Hand, which is just a mage hand that is invisible, until it of course breaks invisibility by attacking or interacting with some objects. We have the base racial speed of 9 meters per turn, which is a standard, and we gain proficiency with light medium armor and short, long, and great swords. Now, because we are going to be a fighter, we will have proficiency with all of the weapons and armor, so that won't be too much of a issue. For our class, we're going with a fighter. As a fighter on level 1, we gain Second Wind, which is a 1d10 plus your fighter level heal for a bonus action. For the fighting style, we're going with, of course, archery. You gain a +2 to ranged weapon attacks, meaning you are more likely to hit because you have greater accuracy. For the background, I'm choosing Guild Artisan just because this is my favorite background. You, of course, for your role-playing purposes, can pick a different background as always. For the ability scores, we're going with 10 Strength. This is here just so that we have a little bit of maybe more jumping distance or a little bit more carry weight because we will be carrying some special arrows and coatings. Then we have 17 Dexterity. This is here so we of course have greater ranged attack rolls like damage and accuracy. So we have of course more armor and initiative. Constitution 16, this is so we have a lot more HP. It won't matter too much for the Constitution saving throws as we will not be concentrating, so mainly here is for Constitution saving throws and for HP. Intelligence is going to be 8, Wisdom is 14. This is here just so that we have a higher chance of succeeding against crowd control spells such as, for example, Hold Person. And Charisma 8. Now Charisma you could maybe remove from Strength and put in the Charisma, this is up to you, but I value this Strength more than the Charisma. Now for our skills here, I would probably go, if this is your main character, I would instead of Survival, I would put this into Intimidation, so you have the Intimidation proficiency, and you will have also Persuasion proficiency from your background. And then for the last point, I would probably keep it in, well, I would keep it in Athletics because this helps you shove and it helps you resist being shoved, which is quite handy to have. Alright, so at level 2 we unlock our Action Surge, nothing too fancy, so we can move on. At level 3 we unlock our racial spell Githyanki Psionics Jump, triple a creature's jumping distance. This is a quite handy mobility spell that you gain once per long rest and just for an action. For our subclass, we're of course going with the Battlemaster, and for our maneuvers, we're going with the Trip Attack, Rally, and Pushing Attack. Trip Attack is useful because if you manage to knock enemies prone, you set them up for your melee allies, who will have advantage against them. Rally is useful for picking up wounded allies off the ground, looking at you, Gale, and also being able to give a temporary hit points perhaps to NPC allies you would like to try and keep alive. And then of course Pushing Attack, you can make it so you push enemies away from you or from your allies, again looking at you, Gale, or potentially to push them off of cliffs. At level 4 we unlock our first feat, and it will be Ability Improvement, and we'll put it into +2 Dexterity. So this is going to increase our initiative, armor class, ranged attack, accuracy, and damage. Also at this point or at level 5 you can also choose to deal with Auntie Ethel, when you will be able to get another +1 into Dexterity or any other ability score, which would mean then this would round it up to a nice 20. At level 5 we unlock extra attack and we unlock our racial spell Misty Step once per long rest for a bonus action, which is very useful. At level 6 we unlock our second feat, and this time we will be picking Crossbow Expert. When you make a crossbow attack within melee range, the attack rolls do not have disadvantage, which means enemies that stand right next to you, they no longer impose disadvantage on you, meaning you can shoot them in the face with your crossbow. And also, your piercing shot inflicts gaping wounds for twice as long, meaning it's 4 turns instead of 2. At level 7, we unlock 2 additional maneuvers, and here we'll be taking precision attack and disarming attack. There it is. Precision attack, this makes it so your next weapon attack gets an attack roll bonus equal to your superiority die, so you gain a bonus 1d10 to the attack roll. And then disarming attack, always very useful because you can potentially knock an enemy's weapon out of their hand, disarming them, and then if you pick that weapon up off the ground, they are permanently disarmed. Moving on to level 8, we get our 3rd feat here, and for this feat we will be taking Sharpshooter. Your ranged weapon attacks do not receive penalties from high ground rules, and also your ranged weapon attacks with your weapons, with weapons you are proficient with, have a -5 penalty to their attack rolls, and you deal additional 10 damage. You can toggle this on or off. So this is very useful, for example, when you have advantage against an enemy, or if they are crowd controlled by, let's say, hold person or hold monster. Getting that nice flat 10 bonus damage is very good. Then at level 9, we gain our class feature Indomitable. You have become as durable as an iron golem. Whenever you fail a saving throw, you can roll again using the result. So essentially, it allows you to re-roll, but then you have to take the new result instead, which potentially, of course, can save you. At level 10, we unlock the improved combat superiority, meaning our superiority dice gets upgraded from a 1d8 to 1d10. And then for our last 2 maneuvers, we're going to be taking the maneuvering attack. This makes it so that once you hit an enemy, you can use forced maneuver on an ally, increases their movement speed. So what this means is increases ally movement speed by 50%, and they do not provoke opportunity attacks. This is very useful for your allies such as your wizards. Again, looking at you, Gale. And then for your last maneuver, you can take menacing strike or menacing attack, or you can even take something like the distracting strike. You distract your enemy, giving your allies advantage on their next attack roll against the creature. But I'll be taking the menacing attack because what this does is possibly frightens your target, and they will have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls, and they cannot move. So you essentially make them not be able to move for 1 to 2 turns. Unless they are immune to frightened effect, of course. At level 11, we are receiving our improved extra attack, which will be very good. It will synergize amazingly with one of our crossbows, and we can move on to level 12. So at level 12, we unlock our 4th and last feat, and this feat will be Alert. This makes sure that we are never surprised and that we are always, pretty much always, first in the initiative, making us able to do our wombo combo, which I will show in the battle showcase. But before that, we are now going to go into the equipment section. Alright, so here we are in the equipment section. So for our headgear, we're going with the Circlet of Psionic Revenge. When you succeed a saving throw, the foe that caused the throw takes 1d4 psychic damage, and Githyanki also gain +1 to Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma saving throws. This is named here just to help us save against the Wisdom saving throws, and also because circlets look pretty cool. Although for the alternatives, you could take something like the Haste Helmet at the start of combat. The wearer gains momentum for 3 turns. You could also take something like the Marksmanship Hat or Saravok's Horned Helmet, if you want a reduction in critical strike roll needed. For our cloak, we're going with the Cloak of Displacement. At the beginning of the wearer's turn, the cloak activates, granting enemies disadvantage on attack rolls that target the wearer. The effect lasts until the wearer takes damage. Essentially, you just gain the effects of Blur, which is very useful. For our armor, we're going with the Armor of Agility. Add your full dexterity modifier to armor class. Additionally, this armor does not impose disadvantage on stealth checks, and you get saving throws +2. We want obviously a medium armor that preferably adds our full dexterity modifier to armor class, because we can have a really high armor class then. So for the alternatives, you could take, until you get something better, the Adamantium Scale Mail, because it gives you all incoming damage reduced by 1. When a melee attack hits you, the attacker is sent reeling for 2 turns. And also, attackers can't land critical hits on the wearer. Of course, alternatively, you can take the Yuan-Ti Scale Mail. Adds your full dexterity modifier to the armor class, doesn't impose disadvantage on stealth checks, and also gives you +1 to initiative rolls. So I would say Armor of Agility and UNT Scaleman are the two preferable ones to have here. For gloves, we're going with the Gauntlets of the War Master. Targets have disadvantage on saving throws against your maneuver and weapon actions. These are crucial for this build because this means all of our Battle Master maneuvers, enemies will have disadvantage on them, making it much more likely for them to fail to save and, well, getting a certain penalty, like not being knocked prone, being pushed back, or maybe even being disarmed. For the alternatives, you can take the Gloves of Power. On a hit with a weapon attack, possibly inflict a 1d4 penalty to target attack rolls and saving throws. This is basically just applying Bane. You can also take Gloves of Archery. You gain proficiency with longbows and shortbows. In addition, your range attacks deal additional 2 damage. Or also the Gauntlets of Surging Accuracy. When you use Action Surge, gain a 1d4 bonus to attack rolls for the rest of your turn. For our boots, we're going with the Boots of Speed. This gives us the bonus action Click Heels, which is a bonus action dash. This is a crucial part of the build as well, because this is what will give us our amazing mobility, because we can pretty much every turn click heels and keep moving unless we are applying some kind of a coating to our weapon, or applying the arcane ammunition. But we'll get to that when we get to the crossbow. For our amulet, we're going with the Fey Semblance Amulet. You have advantage on Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma saving throws. This is here just to help us with the saving throws again. Alternative, you could take the Amulet of Branding. This can be useful, although it makes an enemy vulnerable to bludgeoning, slashing, or piercing until they take damage for 3 turns or until they take damage, which is quite alright. And of course, last one, you could take the Amulet of Misty Step. This gives you 1 Misty Step per short rest. For our rings, we're going with the Acoustic Band. Your weapon attacks deal 2 acid damage. This is a nice damage boosting ring. And you're taking the Ring of Free Action. You ignore effects of difficult terrain, you can be paralyzed or restrained. This is very useful for us because we want to be able to run away and reposition, so to say. For the alternatives or the early game, you can take the Crusher's Ring. This gives you a flat +3 meters of speed. Or even you could take the Risky Ring, which gives you advantage on attack rolls, but you do gain disadvantage on saving throws. Now, you could combine the Risky Ring with instead one of these two, because the Risky Ring and the Fey Semblance Amulet, they will negate each other, so you will not have advantage or disadvantage on Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma saving throws, though you will have potentially disadvantage on Constitution, Dexterity, and Strength saving throws because of it. But for our weapons, we're going with the Knife on the Other Mountain King. This reduces your number you need to roll for critical hit by 1. This effect, of course, can stack, and when you roll a 2 or less, you reroll the dice, taking the highest result. This also gives you advantage on attack rolls against lightly or heavily obscure targets when using this blade. This blade is namely here just so we get a slight reduction in the requirement for the critical hit. And then for our second, we're using the Ambusher. You gain +1 to initiative rolls and advantage on perception ability checks. In combat, you deal additional 1d6 against creatures that haven't taken a turn yet. This is going to synergize really well with our crossbow, because on our first turn we will usually always be first, and we will have this bonus damage against creatures that haven't taken a turn yet, because of course we are first and nobody had a chance to do their turn. For the alternatives, you could take the Witchbreaker. This is a nice stat-stick weapon that gives you advantage on attack rolls against concentrating creatures. Or alternatively, you could also combine the Knife of the Other Mountain King with the Bloodthirst to further reduce your critical hit roll required. This gives you some other effects depending on in which arm you're holding it. So if it's in your main hand, you make creatures vulnerable to piercing damage if you hit them with this weapon. Or if it's in your offhand, when you miss a creature with a melee attack, you may retaliate and gain True Strike. But of course, these two actions won't really help us because we are going to be using our crossbow anyway. And now finally for the last weapon, the ranged weapon, we're using the Crossbow or Arcane Force. This is basically just pretty much a Githyanki crossbow +1, but it has a special weapon action, which is Arcane Ammunition. Infuse your crossbow bolts with arcane energy. Your ranged attacks deal additional 1d4 force damage for 1 turn. Now, this would be usually it is a mediocre effect, it's 1 per short rest, but because we have up to 6 weapon attacks with our action surge, 7 if we drink a potion of speed, or we get haste applied on us, we can have 6 to 7 attacks. If you combine them with the Arrow Many Targets, you can deal a lot of damage on the first turn of the combat. If you combine the Arcane Ammunition with the Ambusher, So you boost your damage by 1d6 necrotic, 1d4 force. You can also apply something like one of the poisoning, the poisons that deal after an enemy takes their turn. Or of course you can try to also apply crawler mucus or blindness. So the damage, as you will see later, is quite high. Alright, so that's it for the equipment section. I will see you now in the battle showcase. Alright, so here we are yet again at the Flaming Fists barracks for yet another battle showcase. So before the combat had started, excuse me, I had applied an all of accuracy to my crossbow, and also I applied haste with my wizard on this character. So now let's go up here and take the high ground for the accuracy bonus. Let's activate Arcane Ammunition. Now I will keep the sharpshooter all in to see if we can hit quite reliably. The first shot will always be higher accuracy because of the illithid power, but we were lucky here. We got a first critical hit, so we took out 1/3 of his health, or almost 1/3 of these two guys, and we took slightly over 1/3. So now if you look at the actual accuracy, it's around 90%, 90 to 80% depending on how much armor class these enemies have. So let's keep going. Let's use up our first 3 attacks to see if we can wipe out these guys. So we killed the first one, and the last one, these two have usually the highest HP. Also, he took the most damage from the arrows because the arrow does lose damage as it travels to additional targets, so these guys are quite lucky. But let's see if we can find somebody who's fresh. She has full HP. Let's use our maneuver. Let's try to disarm her.
You picked the wrong fight, friend.
Hopefully don't miss because of disadvantage. Okay, we didn't. And if you look here, she failed the saving throw. DC 18. This is a really high difficulty class. On top of that, she has disadvantage. So I would say out of like 8 or 9 or 10 times, they should fail this unless they have really high saving throws, or if you're just unlucky, I guess. But now, since we are out of actions, we can just use action surge and we can continue shooting with the arrow at many targets. Finish these two guys off, and then we can continue shooting onto this other Flaming Fist. Now this might miss because, yeah, only 64%. Well, we somehow managed to get the annoying wizard, even though I wasn't really aiming for her. But we can also do this. We could just target our ally, and hopefully the arrow jumps off onto the enemy. So you can do that as well. You can use your allies as sort of bouncing off points so that the arrows hit the enemies as well. I wouldn't advise it because we do deal quite a bit of damage to him, but there you go. You can use that as well. And yeah, so pretty much if you're first, and you will be first most of the time, you should be able to kill first 4 enemies you attack with the arrow main targets. The biggest issue you would have with this build is actually supplying yourself with enough of these arrows. You of course have the smoke powder arrows as well. A great combination you can do also is the oil of combustion. So you use first 2 attacks to apply the oil onto your enemies, and then use an arrow of fire to ignite it, dealing quite ridiculous amounts of damage. This is very useful against a certain mummy lord in Act 3. But there you go, that's the build. I hope you enjoyed. I would appreciate it if you liked and subscribe for more Baldur's Gate 3 content, and I will see you in the next one.